Okay. What's up, guys? It's Buy or Sell Hockey Podcast here. We're back this week, here with June Sports, as usual. So, what's up, June?
So,
Everything good?
yeah, everything good. You hear me?
Yeah, man.
Mhm.
So I made my NHL 32 and 32. Have you been watching the NHL Network's 32 and 32?
Yeah, I was trying to finish it. I got all the way to like 2016. They was at Detroit, so yeah, I got almost through it today.
The NHL Network's one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting, what I like about it is they have like four different analysts, and some of them have different opinions. Like they're pretty disagreed on the Vancouver Canucks. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. Some were like pretty easy, like Edmonton.
yeah,
Different opinions. Yeah.
you're pretty
So yeah.
excited. Season's starting.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be exciting. Opening day, triple header. Uh, so many question marks. Was they had Florida not make it. So
I
that's
know. I was like, what? I was so shocked.
yeah. So yeah, I think it was kind of split on Detroit. That's the last one I got through. So yeah, man.
What do you think about that though? Like them thinking Florida is gonna miss the playoffs.
Some of them were kind of saying what you were saying, kind of like not necessarily luck, but like how do you say that? They kind of overplayed or played past their potential.
Like I think they'll make the playoffs though. Like I think they'll get kicked out in the first round, but like I think they'll at least make it. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I think they were split on that too. Florida,
yeah.
kind of like they're not as good as like last year.
I mean, on paper, they're just as good. It's just the injuries. Like, I understand where they're coming from. Like, obviously, Montour, Ekblad, they're going to be out for a while. They're two best defensemen, but momentum's a thing. I think they'll start strong and then kind of fade. Like, I don't think they'll be physically like as durable for another deep playoff run next year. But Florida, they're a good team. Like I think Florida, like it's tough. Like they don't have any first round picks until 2026, so there's only so much you can do to improve your team. I mean, you know, it's kind of interesting. Maybe they trade away a really good prospect to make like an addition. But 2025, I think that's probably when you'll start seeing them make really big moves again and try and make another run at the Stanley Cup when Bobrovsky's deal's done, because that takes 10 million off the cap hit. So
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's probably gonna be a steep decline.
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a steep decline. Like I think it'll be kind of like San Jose in 2016 after they made the final. They'll probably take just a small step back for a few couple years and then kind of bounce back and be like an elite Stanley Cup contender and take one more run at it. And then it will be kind of a decline, I think.
Sounds pretty accurate to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were saying how Detroit pretty much has everything, just not like a star player like when they won all those years.
Yeah. I mean, I would say Dylan Larkin is on the brink of
That's
being a
about
star, no?
it. Yeah. Mhm. Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? They were saying the same thing for Seattle too. Like
Yeah.
they don't have that star,
Yeah.
that best player yet. Yeah.
But with Detroit, they have a couple at least. Like they have guys who are like I wouldn't say they don't have a star. Like I'd say Seattle doesn't necessarily have a star. Like Seattle, at most they have one, Matty Beniers. But at Detroit, they have a few, elite players. I mean, they have Larkin and DeBrincat now in forward. I'd say they're pretty elite forwards. And Moritz Seider on defense. I mean, they got good pieces. Like they're a well-rounded team, and I just think I see them grabbing a wild card. I think they're just a little bit better than Ottawa, but It'll definitely be between those two teams for that final wild card spot.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't dive into that too much. They kind of blew off Larkin and Freak.
Yeah, no,
They aren't elite. Yeah,
should be interesting. Like I'm excited this season. Like as a Sharks fan, like I'm excited to see how the new guys they brought in perform. Like for Carlson on obviously adding in Duclair as well as Adina. Like San Jose had a pretty good offseason. It's just like I really hope that they get a good pick this year. Like I'm not crazy if they win the draft lottery. The only way I'll be crazy if they win the draft lottery is if like Demidov has like an insane year and he's Mitchkov's teammate. And if he has a crazy year and he like keeps trajectorying the way he is and passes Celebrini and Iserman, then like I would really want that player. Like that's the player I want for San Jose, Demidov. Um, if San Jose can get him, that's what I want. Whether that's a number one or number two or number three or number four pick. Like I'm not crazy about the draft lottery this year. I'm kind of just hoping San Jose just gets another top five pick.
right. So you don't see any success for a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm hoping they stay crappy until 2026. Like I hope they win the 2025 lottery. I want them to win Misa, and then you can put a nice little dynasty together, hopefully. But man, like, what do you want to see out of your team, the Rangers, this season?
Well, I mean, just like everyone else, finals.
Yeah,
But I don't think that. But yeah, I don't. Okay, so of course finals, but realistically, definitely got to get past the first.
yeah. For New York, I
Get
think the
past the
biggest
first.
key is, yeah. I think the biggest key though for New York would be. Oh wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Can you
My
hear
bad.
me?
It was just lagging for a bit. My bad. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, no.
You're saying?
No, I was just saying, yeah, we got to get past the first. Um, I'd be happy Eastern Conference appearance.
I, I think New York, the biggest key for them to get into the playoffs this year is you got to start strong. Like those first like 30, 40 games will really kind of show like what kind of year New York's going to have. Like if they're not top three in the first half of the season, I'd be a bit concerned.
Oh, you know what? I didn't. I have to check out schedule. I didn't even check it.
Yeah. New York's one of those teams too that's going to be in the mix. I mean, the Eastern Conference is just so competitive that you can't really like pick who's going to make the playoffs. There's just so many good teams like uh like even a team like Columbus, like you can't count them out either. Like the only teams I would count out would be Philadelphia and Montreal. Like I don't think those teams are playoff teams.
That's that's a deep. That's deep. If
Yeah.
only two is bad, that's gonna be brutal
And
trying
even
to
a
get
team
in
like
there.
Montreal, like you can't count them out to some extent either because they have good young forwards. Like their forward group is really good. I'm not so sure about their back end, but they have good goaltending. They have good forwards. It's just putting everything together.
So you would say only Philly is like really at zero.
Yeah, Philly shit. Phillies, they're worse than San Jose. Like that says a lot. Like fuck, man.
Oh, wow.
Like
Man,
they're worse than my
that's
team.
brutal.
They're worse than my team. They're shit. Like, oh my goodness. Like Philly is so bad. Like, oh my goodness.
I
Yeah.
think second round is but
But I feel for Philly. They had some injury, bad luck with injuries, and then Claude Giroux gets traded, and it was just I don't know. It was kind of time for Philly to fall apart. Like out of all these years, they never had like a full on rebuild except for like 2017, and they had the second overall pick and blew it. Like
they get
they took Nolan Patrick because this is when Ron Hextall was their GM. Like luckily they fired him this year. But there was like a podcast, and I forget. I think it was one of Philadelphia's. I think it might have been Holmgren, who was their old president, or somebody who worked for Philly during Hextall's time, who was high up in management. He said that Every single person in the management team, all the scouts, all the his assistant general managers, the presidents, everybody told Hextall, "Don't take Patrick, take Makar." And they took Nolan Patrick despite his concussion problems and having a piss poor draft year because Ron Hextall used to play for the Brandon Wheat Kings in the Junior Western Hockey League. And that's why he drafted Provorov too, who wasn't a bad pick, but he had a tendency to draft Brandon Wheat Kings players. And he had obviously had a bias towards Nolan Patrick, and he went with Patrick instead of Makar, and that freaking costed Philadelphia. I mean, big time.
I think that
Oh, I didn't hear what you said.
I was saying if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I was just saying like a bad pick that high, they can set you back.
Yeah. Well, you know that with the Rangers, with Kako and Lafreniere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So speaking from experience.
Yeah, but those guys aren't as bad as Patrick. That was like because there's still hope with those guys, like Kako especially. Like Kako can still become a really good player. Like I think Kako, he's shown like more than Lafreniere as far as like he's just more dynamic, bigger body, um, just a harder worker. Like Capo Caco, I think will become a good player, but it's like Lafreniere. I think this is kind of his last chance with the Rangers.
Yeah, 1 year.
Hmm?
1 year. So I think we extended him what 2 years?
Yeah, you guys
Back to
extended it for 2 years, same day as Matthews got his extension.
right. So I guess yeah, that's 2 years to prove it.
Yeah, apparently it's more of a 1 year to prove it kind of thing. Like that's what Elliot Friedman was saying or something like that. Like they're gonna give him next year with the new coach, and if he doesn't do well, then they're gonna trade him next summer or something like that.
Okay, that's pretty fair.
Yeah,
It's had a couple years, so
yeah.
that's pretty
New York's one of those teams they've had better luck in the late first round than the early first round. Like you guys, your high picks like Kako, Lafreniere, Lias Anderson, Kratsov, like most of those guys haven't lived up to par. But your late first round picks like Keandre Miller and Philip Chittle, they're great. Like those guys are, big pieces.
yeah, yeah. Just extended them to both of them. Yeah, yeah,
I think that's the key for New York. Like if Philip Chittle and Capo Caco and Keandre Miller take another step, like they can be a really dangerous team. Like I think that's what New York's kind of hoping that their improvement comes from like within, from development.
yeah, man. That would be beautiful. That could be success in the next decade. Right? Both,
Yeah,
I mean, all three of them are pretty young, so
yeah,
I hope so.
yeah. I would keep Caco. I would keep Chittle. I would keep Keandre Miller, but Lafreniere, that's on the brink of becoming like a Philip Zadina situation in Detroit where you don't end up getting anything for him and you risk him being effective for another team. So, I mean, there were talks this summer that Lafreniere, like Chicago, was interested. Like they reportedly offered Reichel, who was a first round pick, really solid player, young too, and they're willing to move Reichel and like pick number 19 for Lafreniere and pick number 23. So New York could have moved up and swapped Lafreniere for Reichel, but I don't know. I guess they feel like they can give Lafreniere one more chance, but if Lafreniere doesn't bounce back, they might regret that trade, low key.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that'll be off the table
Yeah.
by then.
Because Reichel is a sleeper player for Chicago, like especially if they slot him with Taylor Hall and Connor Bedard, like that could be a really solid line. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Forward, forward.
what's your expectations for Chicago this year?
For me, yeah, I don't think much, honestly.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I don't think too much of it. Yeah, I think that's a couple years in the future.
I think they're going to be an exciting team to watch, though. No. Like I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but I think like I think certain guys are going to get rejuvenated. Like I think Taylor Hall is probably going to have a big year, and I think the biggest one is Seth Jones. Like Seth Jones, like it wouldn't surprise me if this ends up being like an Eric Carlson kind of situation. Like I'm not saying he's going to put up 100 points. Like I don't think that, but Seth Jones before he got traded to Chicago, like they paid a really big price for him and then signed him to a crazy contract. And before that, he was a premier defenseman in the National Hockey League, one of the best two-way defensemen in the National Hockey League. 6'4", good skater, good offense, good defense. And then he goes to Chicago, and things kind of fell apart, and he kind of fell victim to their circumstances. But Seth Jones is a guy like if he their power play is going to be better because of Bedard and Taylor Hall. So if they can get their power play going, I think Seth Jones is a guy that could have a really big year, maybe put up 60, 70 points, and then he becomes a guy, he becomes tradable again. Like Eric Carlson before this year, he was not tradable, like with his contract. Then he goes out and wins the Norris Trophy, and then you get a decent return for him. So I think that would be best case for Chicago, like get the best out of Seth Jones again, and then flip him and acquire more assets.
Say it all the time, man. You're a hell of a GM.
No,
So,
I
so,
appreciate it.
so, so if that happens, you don't recommend keeping him. If that scenario happens,
That's a tough one because Seth Jones, the one difference here between him and Eric Carlson is Seth Jones is still young, especially for a defenseman. Like he he's still young. Like he hasn't even hit his prime yet as a defenseman. Like I don't even think he's what is he, like 27 years old? Let me search this up. Like Seth
yeah,
Jones is
yeah,
young.
somewhere around
Like he's young, especially for defensemen, because defensemen usually take the longest to develop, right? So defensemen don't hit their prime until they're like almost 30, right? So yeah, Seth Jones, 28 years old. I mean, he's still young, but at the same time, let's say Chicago, I think they'll probably be a playoff team in, I would say 2026. Could be 2025, depending on the moves they make. It all depends what kind of season they have. Like if they're not at the very basement and they show that they can be a playoff team, not this year, but next year for 2025, and they show that they have that kind of potential, then you keep Seth Jones because then he'll still be good in that time where you can compete for a cup. But if they feel like they're not going to be a playoff team till 2026, 2027, it might be worth it for them to part ways if the price is right?
Hmm, okay. I see exactly what you're saying. They're too far away.
Yeah.
Uh, just let them go.
I really want to see the Dallas Stars make a move for him. Like I think that's the perfect fit. He was born in Dallas, Texas. He's the kind of guy they need. Like you pair him on a D pairing with Heiskanen or Lindell, like one of those good left shot defensemen in Dallas, like you'll get the best out of Seth Jones. Like I have no doubt. Like Seth Jones is he's fucking good. He's freaking unreal. Like I think Chicago would probably have to take a few crappy contracts back. Maybe I don't know. The thing is like if you want to trade a guy like Tyler Sagan or Jamie Benn, they have a no trade clause. So I don't know if they would waive their no trade clause, but you could move another crappy contract like uh maybe Ryan Suter. But then again, I wouldn't mind them keeping Ryan Suter. He played with Ryan Suter in Nashville. Maybe that's another good defensive pairing. Like Ryan Suter, I wouldn't move Suter either. I think the perfect guy to move is probably Radek Faksa and a few of their other kind of crappy contracts. But if they could make that work and get a third team involved to retain some salary, like you shed Faksa and then Chicago retains like 10%, like San Jose retained 10% of Carlson, then you get another team to retain like 5 or 6%. It could work.
Yeah. That's with Dallas, right?
Yeah. Like if I
Uh,
look at Dallas's roster, their roster is literally perfect except for like the right hand defense slot. Like that's all they need is a Seth Jones.
yeah. Plug and play.
Yeah.
As soon as he gets there, yeah. Hmm. So you think they'll be talking about Chicago? So you're saying exciting, just not like winning.
Yeah. I think they'll be exciting to watch. Like they have some good young players. I think Reichel and Kurashev and Bedard, those guys are going to be fun to watch. I think Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, Chicago, they have Murphy as well, who could be a trade piece. Like Chicago, they still have some good trade pieces. Like that's the thing. Like teams would be interested. I'm not sure how much salary they can retain because they retained McCabe's deal and got a boatload for him. But realistically, I think they kind of got fleeced on that deal with Toronto. Like I think Toronto got the better of that deal just because Lafferty was involved. Like Lafferty was like a really nice young player for them. Like he was a really good bottom six forward for them that showed potential to be like a guy who could play, middle 6 minutes for a long time. Like I really like Lafferty and I really like McCabe as well. I think McCabe's a solid second pairing D man, and to only get a first round pick and I think like a second for a young top nine forward and a top four defenseman at 50% salary retained, like I definitely think Kyle Davidson got fleeced on that one. And the Patrick Kane deal, I mean, obviously Kane made it almost impossible to trade him, but you still could have done better than that.
Right. Now, I had a question. Do you think just like people would want to play for play with the Dart, like you were saying, Jamie Benn, they have no trade clause. Do you think they will waive it just for the Dart?
I don't think so. Because it's just about like Dallas is such a there's no state tax. I think it's a pretty nice city if you got money. It's it's just a very nice conservative state, and if you got money, you want to live in states like that. And it's like Florida, right? And
Yeah.
they're winners. They're cup contenders right now. Like this team made the conference finals last year and the Stanley Cup final a few years before that. Like this is and another thing is I don't think Dallas would move Ben or Sagan because they are still somewhat productive. Are they worth their contracts? No. But they are still somewhat productive and they're big locker room guys, right? Like Jamie Benn's the captain, Tyler Sagan's an assistant captain. Like they were the previous faces of the franchise. Like from 2012 to like yeah, Sagan, I think he was moved 2012 or 2013, I forget. But since Sagan's been there and Ben has been there, they've been kind of the faces of the franchise until the pandemic, and then Pavelski got signed and Heiskanen developed into a star. Robertson and Hintz are superstars, so that's kind of the face of the Dallas Stars now. But they're still big pieces of the Dallas Stars. Like I want to see Dallas get a top four defenseman. There are rumors that they're after Noah Hannafin, but I wouldn't add another left shot defenseman. Like I think Florida should try and get Noah Hannafin or someone of that caliber.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. That's true. They're too close
Yeah,
to a Stanley Cup.
yeah. Like I think they would rather dump a guy like Foxa and just pay the extra price to get other teams involved and retain salary. And you know, Seth Jones, like let me try and see what I could do. Because you ever play with Cap Friendly?
No, no. What's that?
It's a
Captain Cap?
website where you can make trades, and NHL teams actually use this website, eh?
Oh, yeah, yeah. You were talking about that a couple episodes
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
So it
That's
basically has every single NHL team's like salary cap and where they are in the salary cap and how much cap space they have, and pretty much the assets. Like they keep track of anything in the NHL. Like even NHL teams use this, which is nuts.
GMs really use that?
Yeah, like Columbus in their one of their videos, like Columbus, they make those behind the battle kind of videos. And I think
Yeah.
like Arizona uses it too. Like I've seen teams in their behind the scenes videos use Cap Friendly, and it's
Wow.
hilarious.
Whoa. Wow.
This guy's made an incredible website where you can pretty much make mock trades now and just look at every team's salary situation. So I'm gonna put it together a little mock trade here with Chicago. And what's nice about this one is you can do three-team trades. Like this website's um,
Mm.
more realistic than NHL 23 via GM mode.
Oh, yeah. It's 24 out yet?
Next month.
Oh,
Yeah, no, that's one thing that I've been pissed for years is like three-way trades have become a thing since like 2018. Like 2018 when the Matt Duchene trade happened, the first one where Matt Duchene got traded to Ottawa, it was like a three-way trade. And since then, they have not added that to the game because that three-way trade happened. It was like Matt Duchene got traded from Colorado to Ottawa, and then Ottawa traded Turris to Nashville, and then Nashville traded um, Samuel Girard for Turris when Samuel Girard was like a really good prospect. So it's like these three-way trades have become really popular since then, like 2018 I think, or 2017 I think, 2017-18 season. I remember that happened. And since then it's become really popular and they just refuse to add it to NHL be a GM mode or franchise mode. I don't know why they don't add that in the game. It makes it way more realistic. But this one, so Chicago, they already have two first round picks, like San Jose. San Jose could potentially have three, depending how New Jersey does this year. So let's say Seth Jones, right? Seth Jones. How many salary retained slots do they even have? I don't know if that even will show that, but it would cancel it out anyways. So let's say you get a team like Dallas, right? Dallas wants Seth Jones. I think a first round pick would be involved. You would agree?
Seth Jones, yeah. Seth,
Yeah. Especially this is assuming that he's playing well, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's look at some contracts that could be moved. Yeah, the two that really stick out to me are Foxa and Suter. I think Foxa, he's only what is it, 400,000 cheaper than Suter. I think at that point you would let go of Foxa instead of Suter, especially for the locker room. So Dallas would be six. If you traded Foxa on a first round pick for Seth Jones, Dallas would still be over the salary cap by 6.5 million. So let me see who else they move. I think at this point you trade. I guess you'd have to throw in a prospect too, like Maverick Bork. Dallas is still over 6.5. So I think, what do you even do? Like, that makes it almost impossible. Like, I guess a third team would have to get involved. So it's a team that has some salary cap space, like Anaheim. Does Anaheim have space? Nah, that they wouldn't take on salary long term. Um, trying to think. Nashville has some salary cap space. Maybe because they even though they're not necessarily in a rebuild, they're in a retool, and I think Nashville would appreciate accumulating assets right now. Like Nashville, they're not really in a rebuild, but at the same time, like they're kind of in the business of accumulating assets.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Trade team for to take some contracts, right?
Yeah. So let's say Chicago retains 10%, right? They send them to Nashville, and then Nashville can retain, let's say, another 10% of that, and then send that to Dallas. So I think Nashville would have no choice but to trade Ryan Suter. Yeah, I think Nashville would probably have to trade Ryan Suter. Um, unless they wanted to trade Jamie Benn, I don't see them doing that. But
Yeah,
uh,
I was gonna say that, but I feel that's like too big of a. It's like maybe their best player, one of them.
yeah, Jamie Benn's not their best player, but he's their captain. Like that's a pretty bold statement to make, trading your captain at the trade deadline. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I guess Hanakapa, you could move him. Hanakapa to Nashville. Okay. They're still over the cap. So
And it will have to be done
Hmm?
No, I was saying maybe it'll have to be them.
Yeah, I mean, let's see if Chicago's willing to retain 15, does that change anything? If they both retain 15% each, does that change anything? Nah, Nashville's still over. Yeah, the only solution would be to trade Ryan Suter. I guess you could move Ryan Suter back to Nashville. I think he would waive his no trade clause to go back to Nashville. Um, yeah, I guess that's what you're doing, right? Like, I mean, I don't think they have any other choice. Unless I guess Sagan have a no trade clause? Let me check. Yeah, Sagan has a no move clause. Yeah, complete no move clause. Like that's. I guess Ryan Suter has one too, but I think he would waive to go back to Nashville. So Ryan Suter goes to Chicago. Nashville retains 10%. So Ryan Suter would go to Nashville. And then nah, yeah, they would still be over. So you're basically giving up quite a bit still, like for Maverick Bork in a first. I guess yeah, you could throw in yeah, but then Nashville wouldn't have any salary retained spots left, so I guess Chicago would have to retain at least 20%. Shit. I mean, that could work. I mean,
Like, what's the most teams usually retain?
hmm?
What's the most like teams would usually retain?
I mean, it depends on the owners, right? Like Chicago, the thing was with San Jose, they could have got more for Carlson. So the thing is, the reason why they didn't is because the owner said no. But the difference is the owner of Chicago probably has more money than San Jose. Chicago's a pretty wealthy franchise. Um, you know, I don't know. So yeah, 25% that deal goes through. So yeah, so Dallas would lose Faxa, Suter, Maverick Bork, and um, and a first round pick. I think that would, yeah. I mean, I just still can't really see Chicago doing that. I mean,
Mhm. That sounds like
I
a
guess
good
yeah.
return.
Hmm?
No, I was just saying that sounds like a good return for Chicago.
So so. I mean, at 25% salary retained. I mean,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Forgot about that.
I mean, I guess a second round pick would have to at least go to Nashville for taking on Suter. No, I mean, yeah. Wait, second round pick to Ryan Suter.
Three team ones are chaotic.
Hmm?
You know what I'm saying? The three team trades are chaotic.
Yeah, 100%. So let me see. Is there any way for me to publish this thing? So basically, what Nashville gets. So basically, going to Chicago. Chicago receives Maverick Bork, who's a pretty good prospect. Radek Faxa, who's like a salary dump, and a first round pick. Dallas receives Seth Jones at 25% salary retain with a 7 million cap hit. And Nashville receives Ryan Suter and a second round pick for taking on Ryan Suter. So I guess that could work. I mean, I wouldn't hate that trade. you know, I wouldn't mind seeing Seth Jones back in Nashville, to be honest with you. Like that, I think honestly, if Nashville trades Tyson Berry, the thing is Nashville needs a good right shot defenseman, so Nashville can afford Seth Jones much easier than Dallas. So Seth Jones, if he returns to Nashville and Dallas can get Tyson Berry, they could make something happen. I think this would actually make more sense. Let me know. You heard my first mock trade, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna make another one here.
Mhm.
We'll come back in a second since we're running out of time anyways, eh?
Yeah. I think we are right.
Okay, I'll invite you to another call in literally 2 minutes, eh?
Yeah. No doubt.
We're back. Okay, so this is a trade I put together. I could probably tweak it a little bit. You can hear me, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Cap Friendly approved this. So to Chicago, they get Radek Faksa from Dallas, Dante Fabro, good young defenseman from Nashville, and a second round pick from Nashville. And Chicago sends Seth Jones at 10% salary retained to Dallas. Dallas sends Seth Jones to Nashville with 5% salary retained and a first round pick in Ryan Suter. So Nashville's taking Ryan Suter off their hands for Tyson. So Dallas, they're getting Tyson Berry out of this deal as a rental, and basically they get Ryan Suter and Fox off their hands with a first round pick, and then Nashville retains 50% of Foxa and sends him to Chicago. So I guess you could get rid of the 50% salary retain on Foxa. I mean, I guess that doesn't make a difference since Chicago's got so much cap space anyways. Yeah, that makes no difference. So I mean, yeah, Nashville. I mean, I may as well just send Foxa straight to Chicago from fucking Dallas. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
You could.
So yeah, Dallas gets rid of Foxa to Chicago, Suter to Nashville. They get those two contracts off their hands, and they retain 5% of Seth Jones. They send the first round pick to Nashville, and then Nashville sends a second round pick plus Fabro for Seth Jones. So I mean, I think that deal works for all teams. It's approved salary cap wise. At Nashville, they don't get Seth Jones. I mean, Dallas doesn't get Seth Jones, but they still get a decent right shot defenseman, and they actually gain some cap space. So I don't know. I like that deal for all three teams. You?
Yeah. Seems like everybody wins. Um, especially Dallas. I really like it for Dallas. That's a lot of pieces they get back.
Yeah. I mean, getting Tyson Berry would be huge for them, and you get a couple crappy contracts off your hands. You only have to eat 5% of Seth Jones' deal. Seems like a good deal. Yeah,
Like, you put that together.
yeah. So this would be the deal. So Dallas, Dallas trades Foxa um, for Seth Jones, and they set Chicago retains 10% of Seth Jones, sends him to Dallas. Dallas retains 5%. They send him to Nashville along with Ryan Suter, and then basically they get back and they send a first round pick too, and they get back Tyson Berry. So I mean, essentially what Dallas has given up is a first round pick and retaining 5% of Seth Jones' deal to get Tyson Berry. I mean, that seems like a fair deal to me. And then, what Dallas is giving, what Nashville's giving up is they're taking on Ryan Suter for 2 more years, and then they get Seth Jones at a pretty reasonable price for Dante Fabro in a second. So, I mean, and for Chicago, you only have to retain 10%. You get Dante Fabro, who's probably worth about, just under a first round pick plus a second round pick. You know, makes sense.
Yeah, I think pretty much everybody will deal with that.
So, what do you want to talk about?
Okay. So we done fine. Well, I guess we could redo for update finals predictions. I really like finals.
Yeah, what's your updated? What's your finals predictions? Mine's still New Jersey and Edmonton.
Hmm, yeah, pretty much. I agree. I'm trying to think of the West because, of course, I pay a little bit more attention to the East. Hmm.
LA's pretty good if they can get a goalie.
Yeah, I was trying to think of some people right under them, maybe upset them. Yeah, I can see Carolina Kings.
Yeah.
That could be
I think
Carolina.
LA just needs a goalie. Like I want to see them get Flurry. Like I think Flurry makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure
Oh
how
yeah,
it works salary cap wise. I could kind of see if I can put a trade together like that right now. Like what would it even look like? Like like
my trade. So LA can get a goalie,
yeah, because Flurry he's kind of lost his job, right? To Gustafson. Like Flurry's Minnesota's backup right now, but I still think he's good enough to be a starter. Like
right?
Minnesota's pretty tight on the cap too, so I know LA's tight, but Minnesota could make something work. I mean, yeah, Fleury's making 3.5, only one more year on left on his deal, so it's low risk both sides. Um, you know, LA, see if they have any contracts they need to get off their hands. I guess they could, yeah, Copley would make sense. Yeah. I mean, LA would still be over the salary cap. So I guess Flurry for Copley, and then you get a third team involved. So I think like a team like Anaheim,
Yeah.
but I don't think Anaheim would help them out. Maybe trying to think.
Hold on. So you got Jersey taking it all,
Yeah,
taking the whole thing. Oh, okay.
I think maybe a team like Nashville. Nah, Nashville they have too many salary retained spots. Um, I guess Montreal they could hold on to some salary. So I guess they need to get rid of a goaltender too. So maybe Casey DeSmith goes back to Minnesota. I guess maybe.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. So maybe LA doesn't have to trade Copley. Um, Casey DeSmith can get traded to Minnesota. And yeah, so Casey DeSmith to Minnesota. Montreal, they're kind of over the cap right now. So it's like, what do you even do? Like, I guess Dvorak could be a guy that gets moved for to Minnesota. That would make some sense. Yeah, Christian Dvorak to Minnesota. I actually really like that. Casey DeSmith. Okay, so they go Casey DeSmith and Dvorak go to Minnesota. Fleury goes Montreal, actually, and then Montreal retains 50% on Fleury and then sends him to LA Kings. So Montreal would still be a little bit over. Yeah, that wouldn't work. Yeah, the whole yeah, it's surprised. It's just yeah, the salary cap didn't go as much as people thought it would. So it's like It's
Oh
just,
yeah, they were talking about that too. Yeah,
yeah,
isn't it going up again
it
in a
should go
couple
up
of years?
next year. Just it didn't go much this year, and I think teams were expecting that, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they were talking about that on each other.
Yeah. Well, anyways, do you think we
Anything?
covered everything, or is there anything you more you want to talk about?
Uh, no, I think we're good. Off season moves, Cup, Stanley Cup. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
man.
that's pretty much a wrap.
So your predictions right now is Kings versus Canes, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a yeah. Kings.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll keep with New Jersey and Edmonton. You know, thank you
Yeah,
for coming in, June. Thank you for coming, June Sports. You've
yeah,
been a
no
great
doubt. Yeah,
co-host. We'll try and do this again in a week or two.
yep.
You know, thank you. Always a pleasure, and thank you guys for watching. And have a great
Likewise.
day.